For today's lesson, we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting mixed numbers. And what you're going to realize when we do this is that I'm not going to be teaching you anything new. It's going to be a basic review of skills that we've had. And the theme is use old skills to overcome new challenges. And that is going to be the way that we add and subtract mixed numbers. That's going to be the way that we are adding or multiplying mixed numbers, using improper fractions. We're just using all of these old things that we know how to do and creating them in a sequence so that we can solve these problems in ways we're familiar with. And now we're going to take a closer look at the skills that you're going to be using. So here are the list of skills that we're going to be using to add and subtract mixed numbers. These are skills that we've worked with in the past, that I have taught in the past. So if you are not comfortable with any of these four skills, make sure that you go back and you look at these lessons and then come back to this lesson on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So for today, you will need to be able to change a mixed number to an improper fraction, find common denominators with equivalent fractions, add and subtract those fractions, and then finally we will change the improper fractions back to mixed numbers if necessary. So we're going to look at how these four skills, things we already know how to do, can allow us to overcome a new challenge without really doing anything new.
Here we have our first example for adding and subtracting mixed numbers, 3 7/8 plus 2 3/4. And step one of solving is to change the mixed numbers to improper fractions. So we're going to do that together. I know that 3 times 8 is 24, and I add my 7 on, giving me 31 out of 8. 2 times 4 is 8, and I can add on my 3 for 11. So now I have 31/8 plus 11/4. And I'm looking at a fraction addition problem, and I already know how to solve fraction addition problems. I can now see that my next step is to find common denominators to solve. So when I'm looking at my fractions, I can see that 4 can become 8. So instead of changing both, I'm going to multiply my 4 and my 11 by 2. And now I have 31/8 plus 22/8. So again, if you are not comfortable with step 1 or step 2, you should stop here and go back to those lessons, because these skills need to be something we're comfortable with in order to solve. So now I can simply just add the fractions because I have my common denominators, and now I can add. 31 plus 22 is 53, and my denominator remains the same. So I can see now that I have an answer to my question. However, if you were given a mixed number addition problem, your answer should be in a mixed number. Even though this is equal to a mixed number, I still should provide the answer in the form it was given. So my last step here is to change the improper fraction to a mixed number. And I know that that is a simple division problem. 53 divided by 8. I know that 8 times 5 is 40. I have 13 left, so 8 times 1 is 8, which leaves me with 5. You can see that I've made a mistake here. 8 times 1 gives me 8. So my answer would be 6 5/8. So it's important to see if our answer makes sense. I have 3 plus 2. I know it gives me 5. 7/8 is almost another whole, and 3/4 is almost another whole. So I know that the 3 plus the 2 is 5, but with two large fractions over a half, it's going to boost that to 6. So I know that my answer does relatively make sense. So you can see here that this is a lot of work, and I understand that. but we're following 4 simple steps that we already know how to do. So we're going to go ahead and take another practice. So here we have 4 1/3 plus 3 2/4. So we have a mixed number addition problem. I want you to pause the video and attempt step number 1 only on your own. Change the mixed number to improper fractions. After you finish step 1, restart the video. I'm going to go and do step 1 now. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So I have 13 thirds plus 14 fourths. And when I see this fraction addition problem, I know that I cannot add them yet. Step number 2 is to find common denominators. So go ahead and complete step number 2, and after you've done so, come back to the video. So pause now. I'm going to find the common denominators now. So I know that 3 times 4 and 4 times 3 is going to give me a common denominator. If 13 times 4 is not mental math, you should be doing some sort of multiplication work on the side. Whether it's traditional or lattice is your choice. But you should not be guessing at the answers. If it's not mental math, then go ahead and find a way to solve it, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I have 52 over 12. And again, 14 times 3 is not mental math for me. So I'm going to do this work off to the side. So I have 52 twelfths plus 42 twelfths. And now we can add those. So step number 3 is to add the fractions. So go ahead and complete step number 3, and then come back to the video when you're ready. Pause now. I'm going to solve step number 3. 52 plus 42 is 94. Over 12, my denominators remain the same. So we were given a question in mixed numbers, which means our answer should be responded to in a mixed number. Leaving us with step number 4, change the improper fraction to a mixed number. So, I know that's a division problem, 94 divided by 12, and I know that 9 times 12 is 108, that's too high, so I'll just try 7 times 12, which gives me 84, and that leaves me with 10, which means my answer is 7 10 twelfths. So my last step here is to see if my answer makes sense. 4 plus 3 is 7. I have a fraction less than a half and a fraction equal to half, so that means that I should have a somewhat large fraction almost worth another whole number. So we're going to do one more practice problem subtracting mixed numbers. Step 1, 2 will remain exactly the same. Step 3 is simply going to change to subtract the fractions. And step 4 will remain the same if necessary. So I want you to pause the video and copy down your 4 steps onto a piece of paper. When I give you the example problem, I want you to try to do the entire problem on your own and then come back for the review. Here you have an example problem, 3 1/4 minus 2 5/8. As I said, subtraction is exactly the same as addition, except your step 3 you would subtract the fractions. So you should have the 4-step list written down on a piece of paper, solve this problem from beginning to end, then come back and watch the process. So you should pause the video now and come back to check your answer. If you get stuck, come back to watch small pieces. So the first step is to change the mixed numbers to an improper fraction. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13 fourths, minus 8 times 2 is 16, plus 5 is 21. So I have 21 eighths. Next, I need to find common denominators. I can simply just do 4 times 2 to get my common denominator. This isn't the only option. If you solved it a different way, we'll still work back to the same answer. 26 eighths minus 21 eighths, because I did not need to change my 21 eighths. Next step is to subtract my fractions, because this one is a subtraction problem. So I will go ahead and subtract across. I'm left with 5 eighths, and change improper fraction to mixed number. In this case, I am not left with an improper fraction, so I have nothing else to do with my answer. 5 eighths would be my final answer. Now, if you found a different denominator in step number 2, perhaps you would have 10 sixteenths. That's a common denominator. Perhaps you would have 20 32nds. These are all equivalent fractions and would all be correct answers. So, hopefully you realize that to add or subtract mixed numbers, we can follow these 4 steps of fraction skills that we already know how to do.